Let's talk Mara Brock Akil's reimagined version of Judy Blume's book Forever, the Netflix series. All right, hit the like and subscribe button as the intro plays. All right, for many of you who don't know, Judy Blume was hot in the 80s, okay? 70s and 80s, Judy Blume was the it author. But I read all of most of Judy Blume books growing up, and Beverly Cleary as well. Like Ramona and Beezus was my jam. Anyhow, but growing up, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was the book for little girls to read as they develop because, it was talking about periods. That's what the main takeaway. You need to read this before her periods. She needs to read it before her period starts. But I think mine started before I read it because I was an early developer. Anyhow, and I read Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing. I read the book Deanie, which was my favorite. I'm not even sure if I read Forever. It kind of escapes me. I know I read all these books, but I don't remember everything. Although I do remember with Forever, there was this drama around it because it was about sex. There was sex in it. And so my sister, who was 3 years older, and my neighbor, who was 4 years older than me, her mother did not, she had the book. And I think she passed it on to my sister, and my mother did not want my sister reading it. But the irony of it all is we got cable in 1982, so we had already seen a lot. I think I saw more than my older sister because I used to stay up late with my older brother who's like almost 8 years older. And we would just I would watch Emmanuel Goes to Brazil, Lady Chatterley's Lover. The first movie we watched on cable was Tarzan the Ape Man and History of the World Part 1, which were rated R movies. So as in 1982, how old was I? I was young in 1982 when we got cable. And so it's like, you don't want us to read that, but I've seen it all. Like, I remember watching Body and Soul with Jane Kennedy and Leon Isaac Kennedy as a little girl and seeing all of that. But yet they didn't want us reading Forever, or my 12 or 13-year-old sister reading Forever.
I ain't got to tell you what happened next.
Now, Forever, the novel is a love story, a story of first love for a character named, a lady named, a young girl, a teenager named Catherine.
Wait a minute. Something just clicked. Click, there it is.
Who finds her first love in a guy named Michael. Now, these are two different stories, mind you. So if you're going in watching it, trying to find the true story of Forever, you're not going to find that. What you will find is a sweet tale of first love, a tale of a mother's love, parents' love, and protection, as well as a little bit of drama. So instantly, we have these two characters, not Michael, not Catherine, as told in the book. We have Justin and Keisha. Now, the characters are flipped, if you will, from the novel. Justin being, this is his story. This is Justin's story, and the story of Justin's parents trying to get him to success. They want him to succeed, and they want to do it by any means necessary, primarily his mother. And for some reason, I can't remember the mother's name, but I remember the father, played by Wood Harris. His name is Eric. What's his mother's name on the show? Let me find out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the mother's name is Dawn Edwards, to be exact, played by Karen Pittman. The story is a sweet tale. And what I like most about this story is that it is from the male gaze that we rarely get to see. We never get to see young black men or young black boys with ranges of emotion on television. We never get to see that. And so therefore we have this life or this depiction on television of black men is always seen as angry. And I remember once Dr. Phil saying that for men in general, the only emotion in this society that men are allowed to show is anger. And that always stuck with me because I find that to be true. Because a lot of black men, even my most sensitive friends, I remember asking my friend who was frowning, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You don't know what's wrong with you?"
I want to make sure, okay? Because it's an inner cry, bitch. My heart is crying.
Okay, whatever. But it's not allowed in society to show a range of emotion, especially right now when we have this manosphere of calling men who show like they like women or they have a sensitive side, they call them simps. But whatever, these are just hurt people. And what I like most about the story, and I recall seeing in an interview on the Sherry Show, Mara Brock Akil saying that she wrote this show primarily for her sons, her oldest son to be exact, because the show, I guess, kind of, the writing basically resonated with his education. Like, you send your children to the best schools with the hopes that they would have the best chance, the best odds of succeeding. But meanwhile, they suffer socially. And I know this to be fact for several Gen Z kids that I know, like my niece, my friends' kids. I remember my friend's daughter was in a predominantly white school for high school, and so was her brother, but they had two totally different experiences. And this girl's a pretty girl, but she never got asked out. And I remember one time her saying that there are only like two cute girls in the school and I'm one of them. So it's just like, who's going to ask her out? And so Mara Brock Akil mentioned that she did this because you send them to these schools for a better chance, but they end up suffering. And I know a friend whose son has suffered so because of the environment. Like, you want him to have the best education, but meanwhile, socially, he's failing or she's failing because they don't see people like them. So the characters, Justin and Keisha, they lock eyes at a party that's a predominantly white party where they're like one of maybe 4 black kids at the entire party, and they lock eyes. And Justin's parents, they drive it home. They really want him to find a black girl. Like, and I've known people. I remember this guy who I met on the college tour in high school, and he went to a predominantly white school, and this was like his first time with a bunch of black kids. And he used to say, his mom would say, "If she can't use your comb, then don't bring her home." And I often wonder where he is and who he ended up with. But anyhow,
You stay focused.
so this story shows Justin as, his first encounter with, girls, basically. His first girlfriend, his first experience with SCX. And we see that Keisha, who in most stories would be deemed from the wrong side of the tracks, which I like the way Mara Brock Akil treated it. She didn't say it was the wrong side of the tracks. It's just that she had a single mother, a hardworking mother, which Mara Brock Akil said she grew up with a single mother who had several husbands, but nonetheless, a single mother. But Keisha's mom was a hardworking mom who had 2 jobs. And Keisha was holding a big secret from her mom. Throughout the series, this secret is pretty much hidden from her mom, and her mom is like the last to know. Meanwhile, she locks eyes at this party with Justin, and they instantly hit it off and they start, dating. But we see the dynamics start to change when it's revealed what Keisha's secret is, which she has a SEX tape, which this is different from the story, the Judy Blume story, because in the Judy Blume story, Catherine, who is basically Justin, has several boyfriends. She falls for the tennis coach and some other people, and they separate through vacation. But in this instance, Keisha is the more experienced one of the two. So, and she has a secret, which is very 2018. And Mara Brock Akil said she wanted this to be set in 2018 because of everything that was happening with Trayvon Martin's murder. And can you say it on YouTube? And, then the George Floyd incident, all the different instances that happened with black males during this time. And ultimately, black parents just want to protect their children. No matter what income level you're at or where you're from, the idea of parents just want to protect. and make sure their kids have a better life than they had. But meanwhile, Keisha is faced with the fact that her sex tape has gotten to Justin. Mind you, Justin, I really love this character. Now, I've always said Mara Brock-Akil she can develop some characters. Whether you like the characters or not, you know who these people are. And I like that she showed the sensitive side of a black male. She showed that this guy was raised well and cared, and he was considerate of Keisha. He was a safe place for Keisha to fall, whereas Keisha wasn't used to that because she'd just been jilted by her boyfriend, which is why she's now at a new school.
Now, Wanda.
She's now at a new school. She had to leave her old school because of the sex tape that was circulated from her boyfriend. Keisha did not tell her mother about this. Keisha is holding a big burden on her shoulders because she's trying to protect her mother, whereas her mother's trying to protect her by moving her out of that school, thinking under the guise of Keisha had a racist experience. So she moved her from one school to another, whereas her reputation is now following her, and it has followed her to Justin. But guess what? Justin doesn't mind. He doesn't care. He's very sensitive, and he doesn't judge. But the double standard for girls is so different because meanwhile, Christian, the guy who circulated the sex tape, is the hero, the next LeBron James. Keisha had to uproot her whole life, and she's still trying to protect him.
But like a sucker, you walk around, and like a sucker, you going down.
I do like the way that when these two are communicating via text, because you see that on many shows that they start typing and then they stop and then they type something else. This very much so happens in this show. You see what they want to say, but out of fear, they pull back and say something simple. However, what they say isn't necessarily something that shuts down the conversation. It kind of keeps it going. But you see what they're feeling in their initial text messages, which I think is very sweet. And I can't hone this in enough, that I really like that they are showing a black male with a range of emotions. Because the last time we saw a black male with a range of emotions was Trey and Boys in the Hood, when he started swinging at the air.
Hey, come on, you motherfuckers, come on!
And that was only because his friend was, offed. And so it was a violent range of emotions. Again, men are only allowed to show anger versus going inside, which I think is what's wrong with society, is that men, if you're crying, if you show any sort of sensitivity, you're a simp or you're feminine, you're not masculine. And girls who take charge are masculine, when in fact it's all a social construct. Anyhow, so another thing that I like in this show is that it shows classism without being heavy-handed and doing the typical Romeo and Juliet, the Capulets versus who was the other family? But like the haves and the have-nots, and we don't want to intermingle. No, it actually showed that the have-nots can mingle with the haves and not be this big thing. And mind you, I haven't watched the whole series because I'm saving the last 2 episodes for a rainy day. Because when I like a show, and we only get 8 episodes now, everybody. It used to be we got 26 episodes of a show. But we only got 8 episodes, and I'm saving it. I'm saving these shows because it's a good show. And when it's a good show, I just don't want it to end.
Does your character die in the script?
No.
Then it's a good script.
So I don't know what happens in the last 2 episodes. I'm assuming they're gonna break up because this is a teenage love, and teenagers think love is gonna last forever, and on rare occasions it does. But you know what? You need to get out and see the world. Anyhow, so it depicts classism in a different way, because you see 2 sides of the black coin. You see the 2-parent household, Justin, with Eric and Dawn being married.
Are you a male role model? Bushies.
And you see Keisha's mom, who's a single mother working 2 jobs just to make ends meet and struggling while doing so. But both parties are doing it out of care and protection and love and wanting to see their children succeed. Now, Keisha wants to go to my alma mater of Howard University. And I don't know why she wants to go there for track, because like they said in the show, like, they're not even ranked, but she's set on going to Howard, which, I mean, I get, it's the Mecca. And Dawn really wants her son to go to her alma mater, which is Mara Brock Akil's alma mater, which I've known for years because one of my coworkers who went to Northwestern, I think she was her big sister online in sorority, or was her line sister, I'm not sure, but she used to tell that story all the time. And the funny thing is, when I worked at this agency in Chicago, you know, there were people like, we went to Northwestern, and I used to be like, well, we all here together at the same agency, so why are you better than me because you went to Northwestern? And it's, your college does not determine your success, which they mentioned in the story. Dawn is like, I just want to set you up so you could have a better chance at success. Your odds are greater by going to this good school. And the odd thing about it is his GPA was a 2.7, but I think he could get in, you know, they're banking on him getting an athletic scholarship. And Northwestern isn't known for their basketball program. So he probably had a better chance to get into that school than I guess one of those basketball schools like UConn. I don't know why I thought about UConn or Duke or something like that. But, you know, it's still a D1 school, I think. Is it? I know it's Ivy League. It's considered Ivy League. So, but he had like a 2.7 GPA. Who gets into Northwestern a 2.7 GPA? Anyhow, I guess that was the goal. And I don't know what happens because, again, I have not finished the complete series.
So you don't know what happened. I was there. I'm sitting. So you don't know.
But they treat class in a special way. Like at a point in the show, you know, the Keisha and Justin get together. They become first loves. We find out that, you know, this is Justin's first girlfriend, and though Keisha had this sex tape, it was only, you know, a slob in the knob, and not she was still very much so a virgin, however you want to define it. And so they have their first encounter that's unsuccessful, and they keep trying to have encounters. But I'm thinking, like, why y'all trying to do it when the parents are home? Can't y'all go to Keisha's house? Which then Keisha had the bright idea, let's go to my house. So then they did, and it was unsuccessful. That's when they discovered that they were both inexperienced in that regard. So then later on, the parents link up. Because Dawn, they're at Jaden, Justin's brother's baseball game, which Keisha's grandfather is the coach. I believe he's a grandfather. That's the way it kind of... They never said he was grandpa, but I think he was. They meet up. And they link up, and then in comes Christian. Now, Christian is the guy who released the sex tape of Keisha slobbing the knob.
Fool dog mark ass trick.
And Justin's immediately like intimidated and concerned that Keisha is about to, you know, do something stupid, which she does. And Keisha's mother and her family, they really want her to be with Christian because they don't know about what Christian did to Keisha. And they think he's the next LeBron, so he's kind of her meal ticket out. Is the vibe that I was getting. Like, they want her to be with LeBron, the next LeBron James, so you can get out of this hood. And, you know, but Keisha has her mindset on a scholarship to Howard. She has a plan. Meanwhile, Dawn is, you know, Dawn is many mothers. She, you know, she knows what's going on. She has her eye on the prize, and she is out there protecting her kid. And she sees that Christian and Keisha are having this deep discussion. Then they instantly leave. So basically, Justin blocks Keisha. And then we find out, you know, later on, Keisha goes to prom with Christian. They have this big prom send off, coming down the stairs of her apartment, and everybody's like so happy and proud that she's going to prom with the next LeBron. Meanwhile, she still hasn't told her mother. She's been carrying this burden. Justin, his family, they vacation in Martha's Vineyard, where the bougies tend to go. The bougie black people tend to go, but they go all the way from California to Martha's Vineyard. I thought that was very much so an East Coast thing, because, my East Coast family, they would go to Martha's Vineyard, and then I knew people from New York who would go to Martha's Vineyard, and then there was that show, Summer House Martha's Vineyard, which I could not stand, but they would go to Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard just never seemed appealing. Like, the beaches aren't nice. It seems kind of cold, and it just doesn't seem like where I want to be. It's not my vibe, but hey, to each his own.
Ain't nobody asked you nothing. You sound like you bourgeois anyway.
So they go to Martha's Vineyard, and somehow Keisha ends up there with her friend Chloe on the white side. The black side is Oak Bluff, and they end up with Chloe's aunt, who, has a garden and is making all this, food, salads and all this stuff, and they try to figure out how to find Justin. And so they go on to the main strip. I forget the name of the street. And Keisha sees Jaden, Justin's brother, and then Dawn is like, And Dawn was trying to hide that from Justin, but told Justin's father. And Justin's father, Eric, said, we need to talk. And Justin said, what, are you and mom getting a divorce? He's like, why would you think that? Because mom is a lot. Y'all hear that? Mom is a lot. And I think that is the key to why a lot of black men have problems with black women, because they think black women are a lot to deal with versus not seeing it as black women just want the best, want us to succeed, and want to protect. They see it as nagging, overbearing, and they call it masculine, where it is more or less we just want to protect our own, and we care about our own. But, there are those that are a lot, just like Justin's father, Eric, said. There are those that are a lot. The ones who want these providers and want you to buy them bags, and, the ones on the whole game, the city girls, the get money girls. They're a lot, but you know what? They're misguided and misled, and, so that's a whole nother story.
It's a oasis in here, bro.
But I do like the way it showed the dynamics of class, because I think so often that people think that bougie black people aren't real black people. Because the funny thing is, I grew up in 3 different worlds. I grew up in a lower middle class black neighborhood where there was all-American families. All-American families, fathers were there. Fathers were present. Mind you, this was the 80s before the crack cocaine era came in and blew up the whole family dynamic of black people. This was the early 80s, but everybody in my neighborhood had a father. If the parents divorced, the fathers were still present. But most families on my block, they had it was a nuclear family. So I like the way, and I also grew up in I went to school with upper middle class white kids, and I also on weekends hung out with upper middle class to lower middle class bougie black people in Jack and Jill. So I saw all dynamics. I can relate to the hood and I can relate to the bougies. But at the same time, I always felt like I did not fit in any particular group, which is cool. I've always felt like I was on an island of my own. Anyhow, so back to the show. So they're in Martha's Vineyard, and you see that, the bougie black people are still nonetheless black people. The soul of black people runs through black people, no matter where you are in the world. We all have this common thread of soul and rhythm, and we party the same, though it may be a little bit different. But and I feel like there's always this battle of the house Negroes and the field Negroes, the bougie Negroes, and the hood Negroes. And I'm saying Negroes, and I know the word Negro is offensive to people because somebody got mad at me because I said Negro once. But, I'm from the 80s. The black people, the light-skinned black people, the dark-skinned black people. It's always this ongoing battle when at the essence, we all have a common thread, which is slavery runs through our blood. And that connects us. But I like in this show that we see the ranges. Like, it's none that's seen as better or worse. We just see the ranges. We see Keisha's hardworking family that, you know, they're doing everything. They send her off to prom. Her mother's working hard. And we see Justin's family. They've worked hard. They worked hard themselves. They have a different, you know, income. They're in a different income bracket where they're able to vacation. You know, they have I don't know if that was their vacation home in the show, but nonetheless, they were vacationing from California to the East Coast at Martha's Vineyard, where the bougies tend to go. This show overall warmed my heart because it was the sweetest tale that I've seen. And I still have 2 episodes to go. Because I like to save shows just in case there's nothing else to watch. I like to pace myself. Sometimes I can't, but I'm pacing myself on this. So drop it in the comments and tell me your thoughts on Forever. Like and subscribe.